This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know, I'm Ashley. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go over is the letter. It should be right on top of your packet. So the funds that we're going to be going over tonight are the Senior Citizen Center Fund, the Park Commission Fund, Cemetery Fund, the General Fund, which includes admin, police, fire, and district court, and the 1998 one-cent sales tax, and with their 2021 requests. So just a reminder, there's going to be 3 columns. You'll have the first column will be your 2020 budget, which was approved in December of 2019. The second column will be your 2020 updated budgets, and these are actual numbers. And then the last column will be what we have for the 2021 proposed budgets. So once these are finalized, you'll receive individual copies, one that will say 2020 update, and then ones that will say 2021 budget for the next year. So the first budget we're going to be going over is the Senior Citizen Center Fund. Again, there's the 3 columns. If you'll look here at the notes at the bottom real quick and just read through those. And then here at the top, I'll point out a couple of things. So you'll see the 4411 is where we had the insurance claim proceeds, which we won't have those next year unless there's actually a claim. And then the 4945, which is the last one there, that's where the $10,222 of that is where we closed the Senior Citizen Center Bazaar checking account and put it into the Senior Citizen Center Fund, which we talked about last year. And then the $1,459 of that is what was reimbursed from the CARES Act. So what they got back from their supplies that they purchased for COVID. And then you'll see the personnel section, and there's a couple of changes that will be made. They haven't been made to this one yet. We'll be making them tomorrow, but I want to go ahead and tell you about them. So 5202 supplies and materials for the 2021 proposed, we're going to be lowering that to $5,000. So that won't be $9,000 anymore. That'll be $5,000. The 5312, which is permits, we found out today that there's another permit that we'll have to do this year, and so we're upping that to 500 because the permit itself is 450. So that number will change to 500 there. 5502, maintenance of equipment and vehicles. That number there, that will change from 11,000 to 7,000. And 5601, maintenance of building and structure, that $12,000 there will be lowered to $5,000. And these were made at the request of Pam, our Senior Citizen Center Director. And then the only other thing I wanted to point out is a reminder of the 5505 internal services of maintenance vehicles / equipment. That is the mechanic, the city mechanic, what they possibly could use at our city mechanic that they'll reimburse to those 4 funds that we talked about during the year. Any questions about that? Or anything on this page?
One question. Under the revenue 4950, that's a 75% increase. Why has it increased so much?
Well, part of it looks like personnel, which you'll have Patty can answer those questions. Part of it is in your services there. The utilities went up some, and then yeah, so quite a bit of it's in the personnel section. Patty, if you want to take that.
Also, actually, a good part of it is your food vendor cost.
Yes, I'm
increase.
sorry, I forgot that.
Yes.
Yes, quite a bit of that is the food vendors here, the 80,000. It went up from 57,000 to 80,000 for the next year. Sorry,
Yeah,
I
that was,
forgot
and
that.
that was my next question, why that one was up. So I guess they're the same question, but why is that?
I
Well,
think
on
Pam
the
just arrived. Can you answer that one? I thought I just saw her.
Who?
Pam. Pam just arrived on the thing.
I was just going to comment that on the food, that's offset because they collect money on a lot of meals. You'll see that on the meal contributions, it's up 71,000 this past year from what was budgeted at 35. So not sure we can count all that towards that increase.
No, it's not the whole increase. It's just we wanted to point out the other line items in regards to that. As far as personnel goes, the majority of the employees that were budgeted in this department for 2020, their rate of pay fell below minimum wage. So you will see that increase for the majority of these employees because of that reason. And as most of you may know, when you increase one line item, it increases your taxes and your retirement and everything across the board. We had an employee that retired mid-year. We recruited and brought in another employee to replace them. There was a slight lapse in that time frame. There was some shifting around in responsibilities at the senior center to account for different responsibilities that Area on Aging recommended. So there has been a lot of shifting going on with personnel. But as far as the cost increase goes, large in part, a lot of that has to do with minimum wage increasing because a lot of them were way below $11 an hour.
Okay, well, my concern, regardless of which expenses have gone up over last year's budget, when we're increasing the giving of the 1 cent sales tax by 75% plus, that's concerning to me because we're trying to get to a point to where we're going to use those funds for other things other than feeding the monsters that we've already got created.
Correct. Yes, that is a concern, a very legitimate and valid concern with this fund. There is not revenue. They're not self-sufficient. You can obviously see that. There were a lot of, and Pam may be able to chime in on this. There were a lot of different, what am I trying to say? Services that they typically provide in the community and different fundraisers that they typically are able to participate in, but because of COVID, they weren't able to. So that revenue was a lot less. One of those, the main ones is the walkathon, things like that. So that
And you'll see that in the donations there because we had planned for 15 and it went down to the 8,000. Normally they have those like walkathons and stuff like she said that they weren't able to do because of COVID.
But you're probably
Okay, and one of the other things that we are not able to do right now that is very important to the center as far as funding goes is the exercise programs that we went and got trained for, along with the socialization and the congregate side of the donation or the funds that are coming into the center. All those things we are not receiving as of yet due to the COVID closing the center down. So that's going to be a big change once we start opening up, and those funds you'll see will start to come back in. But right now we aren't. Like they were saying, the fundraisers, we had to think outside of the box for those fundraisers, and we did pretty good, I feel, as far as the amount of money that we brought in with the limited fundraising that we were able to do.
Okay, I understand the points that all of y'all are making on that, but those are good, valid points. However, I'm not talking about $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000. This is almost $100,000 increase of the 1 cent sales tax that's going to this department. I just want to understand why. I'm not against it necessarily, but I'm going to have to hear some compelling arguments as to why we need to increase a department by 75%, which equates to almost $100,000.
I think, Mike, what this is boiling down to is kind of reverse math. I think what that figure it represents is what it takes to cover the expenses that are associated with that. So
That
Hey.
is correct, Mr. James. When the senior center was absorbed under the city's umbrella in 2017, there was a lot of the personnel side of the expenses that, you know, they cost more. They do than what we were looking at the figures from them coming in from being under the co-op, which is who used to own and operate the Senior Citizen Center. So there has been an increase in those expenses, as well as the building they're in. It's old, just different things like that. Them being on the city's insurance for vehicle and property. You know, you see increases in all of that. So those are things that pre-2017, the city did not have. So it has taken this amount of time to really see what the true operating needs are for the center.
Wow,
This
so
is
we're talking about this year versus last year, not going back to 2017.
Well, I'm just trying to give you a history because it has been a continual increase in what Once and Sales Tax has had to provide to the senior center to help it operate since 2017. So even if you're just comparing last year to this year, there is an increase still, and it's for the very same reasons as to when we first took them over. It has to do with benefits. It has to do with the amount of maintenance and upkeep for the center and different things like that, that prior to us taking them over, the senior center may not have had those expenses when they were under the co-op.
Well, I'm sorry, but I fully do not understand. I mean, I still haven't heard anything that explains why we're talking about almost $100,000 increase in 1 cent sales tax to this department. I would like to see it, Mayor, something broken out so that we can see where that money's going. Because, I mean, if we're increasing one department by almost $100,000 in 1 year, I mean, I think we need to understand why.
We'll break it out.
Yeah, we can break it up.
Well, we just reduced the budget, proposed budget by 15,000 when we started this. Is that correct? With those changes that Ashley gave us?
Yeah, I think so. It did lower it quite a bit.
17.5.
So by my rough math, it's around a $78,000 increase. I don't know what percentage that is, but we're talking about around $78,000.
I have a question, and this I'm sure is not something that can be answered in this meeting, but and I think Pam is listening here, but in some conversations I've had with her, she had alluded to me that there was some funding that she missed out on just simply because the Senior Citizen Center is set up as a for-profit agency when there were funding sources available for nonprofit. So my question is there something we could do to change that organization so that maybe there would be more funding available to help it?
That's a good point.
Pam and I talked about that today, and she's going to talk to our CPA, Tina, who's associated with this, and see if there's something that we can do about getting them a 501c3, I think is what it's called, so they can be nonprofit. But when we took them over, the city of Monticello itself is not a nonprofit entity, and so that's why they're not now. But I don't know what it would take to make them one, if it's a possibility for them to. But we're looking into that now. We
Okay.
are.
Well, through MEDC, they have a 501c3, don't they?
I do not know.
I believe they do.
I think I can get with Nita and possibly ask her
and I
about
don't know.
how they were able to do that, or what we could do to try and get the Senior Citizen Center under a nonprofit 501c3.
Yeah, I think that would be a question to explore. Thank you.
Hey, just one observation in revenues, Mike. you know, if you take out the one sales tax contribution to this program, I mean, revenues are down by $80,000 for whatever reason from actual for 20 to the proposed budget. I mean, when your revenues are down and you've got an increase in your expenses of 58,000 from your proposed budget, I mean, yeah, it's certainly not supporting itself. And I agree with you, Mike. I mean, what do we need to do to make it more self-supportive? I mean, it's a great program. We understand that. I'm assuming, and that you're certainly serving more people now with the COVID stuff with meals than you have in the past. Would that be accurate?
Yes,
Right.
I think that's accurate. Is Pam still on here? I don't see her.
I don't see her either.
Okay. And then the other thing is, what do we charge it for? What, $2 or $3 for a meal?
She,
Yeah.
that's been,
So-
that's,
And
That-
your food cost is not going to cover that. So it's a service. We just need to, you know, I understand your point exactly, Mike. We're doubling the amount of sales tax money to keep that program afloat. So we got some
Right,
questions.
yeah,
We need some answers on that as to what we can do to make it more self-sufficient.
that very issue has been a topic of conversation this year, Mark. And she did finally go up on her, what she charges for her meals. But it's still very, very inexpensive. And I'm not sure that it covers the cost of the meal.
I wouldn't, with the labor and stuff like that. I mean, you look at the math, the food cost, you know, projected less than what your revenue.
It's $35,000 food cost increase.
Yeah. And that, to me, that would just be projected volume of people that you're serving. Not necessarily an increase in food costs per unit, but just the volume, you got an increase in dollars there. Wow.
I have a question.
Yes.
When you talk about the food, and I'm listening and agree everything. When you talk about food, what I was thinking about, and is this you have a company that comes in and prepare the food at the senior citizens building?
No,
They prepare it themselves.
they cook them. Yeah,
They cook them.
we purchase the supplies for it, so the different ingredients and stuff. We have our food vendor now is PFG, Performance Food Group, and they deliver a weekly, I think it's a weekly order of food, and then we have a cook, I think, I can't remember her name.
We have I'm sorry, I'm not trying to interrupt you, Ashley.
No, you're fine.
There's a head cook that the city pays for, and then Area on Aging, there are 3 elder workers that there's grant money that's given through Area on Aging that pay for those workers. They are not under the city, but they work on our facility premises, and they assist in preparing the meals. The meals have to go through a nutritionist and be approved for Medicaid, because that's where a lot of this funding gets billed to, and then that's how the revenue comes in to the center. It goes through Area on Aging, and then they disperse that grant money from Medicaid to the city. So that's kind of how the flow of that money and those charges come through, and the preparing of the foods.
So I have another question. So is it not, okay, for instance, let me just tell you what I'm thinking about. Monticello seems to be running over with food at this point. Good food everywhere. Ain't that right, Jason? Everybody's pantries everywhere. I'm serious. And I was looking at a program the other day just to help out. This just came to mind sitting here. When you say this has to run through Medicaid and all of that, is it not where that city council, the senior citizens can be connected with a particular food bank? To where even some food can be brought in, maybe not, it might not affect the budget. We can set the budget, but don't have to spend the money, if I'm correct about budgeting. But that is so much food in town. I'm just wondering why we aren't so connected and running over, or is that you can't?
I think that Miss Pam is back on, and I think that she can answer that question better than anybody in regards to that, because she knows a lot more about the Medicaid and what they will allow and not allow in the center.
Mhm.
Can you hear Pam? I think you're muted. There you go.
Yes, yeah. We, as far as the donations throughout the city for the food banks and the commodities that we receive from the government, we do receive all of those. Those are part of what preparation goes into our meals.
Okay, so you are getting some free things that's provided by the government and pantries for pantries and
Yes,
things of that.
ma'am.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am. We even will go into Warren and get meals from their food bank when they have an overabundance that's available. They will call us, and I'm in contact with her each month on the date that they're doing it, and we will go and pick up what they have available to us for the center.
okay, all right. Just want to put that out there. Okay, thanks.
Hey,
Well, thank you for that.
Pam, I have a question.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, what is your monthly food cost per meal?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that, please?
What is your monthly food cost per meal?
Per meal or
Yes,
my
ma'am.
monthly food cost?
Per meal.
Because our meals, we try to keep our meals under $2, but we have to go through a nutritionist in order to do so. So there's going to be costs that are accessible for nutritional purposes that will, make our food cost rise. And that's unavoidable. But we kind of go over our menu, and I work with our food performance and Cisco and anything that's on sale. But I try to keep our food cost per meal under $2. Does that answer the question you're looking for?
Okay, yes, ma'am. And I think per
And
meal, per
that's
meal.
why we're trying to keep our food budget cost under that as well. Our contribution just went up to $3 for a 60 age above meal. So that's at $3 now. So we're trying to combat that cost of our food.
Pam,
Okay,
about how many people do you average serving a
how
day?
many meals per month?
Again, could you repeat that, please?
Approximately how many meals the senior center serve per month?
Yeah.
How many meals do we serve per month? Well, that fluctuates as well. Like today we served 142 meals,
Okay.
but we go up to a max of 200 meals per day, and that's per day. Now you have to take into account though, like that funding for Medicaid. Our AR choice people do not pay a contribution price. Our Medicaid people do not pay for their meals. So, I mean, I don't have an exact number of how many meals we served. I could get that to everybody. That's not an issue because we keep track of it. Hey, Miss Kathy or Miss Vicky, the billing that I send to Miss Kathy Tynes has a total amount of meals per served per month. Could you look at that and just give him the exact number for the month of December, please?
Okay, Miss Pam, what I'm trying to ask, trying to do, show a picture where your food costs and the dollar amount coming in from selling the meals that you're gonna need additional funding because it's not covering the meals that you are producing. Does that make sense?
Yes, you're saying the additional money that is being asked is for the production of the food, but I don't believe
Yes.
by looking at the budget that is actually in fact the case. It's not the food cost that is increased. It's everything else. It's the maintenance, it's the supplies, it's, you know, we have bringing in, the money that would cover the cost of the food, in my
Okay,
perspective.
okay, now you mentioned the maintenance and supplies. I mean, yeah. Okay,
Well, you got to
why?
think about it. We went from only serving trays to 52 to 60 people a day. Now we're up to 140 to 200 a day. That cost of that tray is almost $1.
Okay,
You
that's
know,
what I,
I mean,
that's what I want you to tell the council, so
oh,
they can fully
okay,
understand where you are and where you're going.
okay,
So you bringing that out. Okay,
okay. Thank you.
yes, ma'am.
So we're $40,000 over budget.
Was there any other questions regarding this?
I agree with Mike. We need to definitely look at why the increase uh, is there.
We'll do that.
Yeah, we'll look into it.
If I can be of any assistance as far as information, all of you have my email, my cell number, and the center number. Please don't hesitate to give me a call at any given time. I apologize, I don't have in front of me the information that you were wanting, but I will get it.
Ashley, can we get the breakdown by tomorrow at noon? Email that to everybody.
Yeah, I'll look into it. I'll try to do that. And if I can't, I'll let you know, but I should be able to. I'll look into it.
All right. So hopefully you've got all the differences and the additional expenses by tomorrow, and you'll know specifically what each one's for.
Yes. I'll get them to Taryn and she can email them out to all the council members.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Pam,
Were
are
there
you
any
still
other
there?
questions?
Yes, sir.
Pam, are you still there?
Yes, sir.
You may have discussed this before, but if so, I've forgotten. What were all the storm damages to the center, and have all those repairs been completed?
Yes, sir. The roof was the major damage, and that was taken care of.
Thank you.
And you'll notice the proceeds down at the bottom and then how much it costs to repair it. It says storm damage, senior citizen center.
Well, that's what made me wonder if all the repairs have been completed, because the way I read that, repair costs were quite a bit less than proceeds.
Well, the thing was those shingles were under warranty, and so I went back to the architect, and we had the cost of the repairs was strictly the labor to have that redone.
Good for you. Thank you.
Are there any other questions about this budget, this fund? Okay, so we'll go to the next page. These are the permits associated with the Senior Citizen Center, which we found out about one today, which we'll be adding on to it, which is a $450. And I think Pam said that that's a yearly permit. So we'll be
The
adding on to that.
$450 will only be this year, and that is for the educational information because it's a class that I have to attend.
Okay. The next page, you'll see your salaries and how they're broken
And that's
out.
the Serve Safe, along with my.
Pam, are you still there?
I think I accidentally meant to mute herself. You can keep going, Ashley.
Oh, okay. Okay. Sorry. Okay. So, like I said, there's your salaries there and how they're broken out. And then the next page just shows your assets in that fund as of 12/31/20. And then the next page shows your statement of revenue and expenditures for what we did for the year 2020. And that's it for the Senior Citizen Center Fund. If everyone's ready, we're going to move on to the Park Commission Fund. So the first thing I'm going to ask you to do is go down to the bottom left corner and read through the notes. And for the Western Pines Pavilion and the Sports Complex Fields 3 and 6 fencing, those two are complete. The rest, however, are not. Okay, so tying back the 4945, $899 of that was associated with the CARES Act reimbursement for supplies that were purchased in parks for COVID. Now the other portion of that, the $14,994 is from a CD that was cashed. And you'll see that note down there, the CD 51344. It was a 1-cent sales tax CD that was cashed. You'll notice later it was deposited into the 1-cent sales tax and then transferred from the 1-cent sales tax to the park fund per the 9/19/2019 Park Commission meeting. Also, in 2020, we made a partial withdrawal of $17,508 from Park Fund CD 62340, and these were all for the skate park. And then these expenses total $31,600.99, and this was all completed and paid for in 2019, but we cashed the CDs in 2020, and the CDs total $31,602. Now, your 4989 number at the top for donations, that's what we took in for the Lake Trail and the disc golf for the 2020 year. If you'll just look through here, the only new things that we really added were the internal services, maintenance of vehicle and equipment for the mechanic side, and the 5801. So up at the top, we have the 4991 Federal Grants Lake Trail Project, and this is federal grant funding of $150,000 that we'll receive for the Lake Trail project. And then the 5801 is what we'll pay out, so it's $200,000. And the $50,000 there will be offset by the cash donations from the Lake Trail project, which you'll see that number at the bottom in the cash carryover. So $44,925 there. And then we'll have to make up the difference there. Are there any questions about anything?
I just want to say that skate park is not completed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. We've purchased everything we need to purchase for it, except maybe whatever filler we put around the border of it. But we have the fencing purchased. We're waiting on our volunteers to complete putting all that equipment together.
Okay.
So the money is finished, but.
May I ask? I have 2 questions. First of all, where is the skate park going to be when it's finished?
It presently is in McCloy Park. Close, it's, you know where that drive-through is for the,
It's behind the old football field house.
yeah. It's between the football field house and the pre-K.
the City Park School.
Okay. And the next question is, I see that $3,000 is allotted for licensing, training, travel, dues. What are we doing here? I saw the first year nothing, then the 2250 is what you spent. So what are we doing there?
That cost comes from this last year. Whenever we started the pool season, we did not account for paying for lifeguard certification class due to COVID, and us needing to open the pool at such a fast pace where these lifeguards were not able to get and seek out their licensing certification class on their own. We went ahead and had an instructor come down here, and that was their fee. And we were not sure if that was going to be the case again going into this next season. So we went ahead and plugged that number in there so that it was accounted for, just in case that was a need again. Typically, this department does not have a need for licensing, training, travels, and dues. But in this case, it did for that summer season. Another thing is because our Parks Department did not have a vehicle and there was not a vehicle available, they did have to make a run or two to Little Rock and I believe to maybe Monroe, I'm not sure, to Sam's Club to pick up some supplies that were ordered. And so one of the employees drove their personal vehicle, and we did provide them with a mileage reimbursement based on our mileage reimbursement policy. So that's where that comes from. Typically that doesn't occur, but the Parks Department, their equipment, their vehicles started breaking down through the year. So we did the best we could with that, I guess is.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other
question? This one may be more for Patty, but under personnel, the 5104, the health insurance increase of, about 50% in that line item. What is that for? Why is that?
That is because, and that can vary. If we had employees that were on single coverage and then they came in during open enrollment, or they had a life-changing event that allowed them to go and move into a family plan, a lot of that most likely has to do with that. And employees leaving that didn't have insurance for a while, and then it increasing because we have a new hire that took that position and then they became effective, and so that amount increased for the year. So that large in part is why that amount has increased like that.
Okay, because I know I just had not seen that in other departments. This was kind of an anomaly sticking out there.
Yeah, I know. I was looking at that earlier because we had a department head meeting earlier. And I was like, whew, I'm like, that's kind of weird. But then I started thinking it's because we've had some of those employees that have moved from single to family coverage. And so that does increase everything to the high side for that line item.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so if no one else has any questions, we'll move on to the next page. So again, this is permits for parks. So we have two. We have the pool and the splash pad that's paid to the Department of Health, and they're each $25. And that's a yearly permit. The next page are the salaries for the parks and the pool. The next page are your assets here. And so we have notes here at the bottom left corner of this. So you'll see here that we accounted for the disc golf donations through the 2020 year, which was $8,035, and then the Lake Trail donations for the grant match, which was $44,925. The Lake Trail grant is reimbursable holding funds for expenditures. We had an unallocated checking account balance of 92,000, which we used $51,400 of that for the 2021 budget. And so the new unallocated budget or unallocated balance in the checking account is 40,858.43. And then the next page is just your statement of revenue and expenditures for the park fund. So any more questions about the park fund?
No, just not really a question, but I guess it is for Patty. Going back to what you were talking about a while ago on the increase of insurance, I'm looking at this salary page, and that employee insurance of some of those guys have like 10,850, and the other ones are 4884. Is that the single versus the family coverage?
Yes, that is correct. So you
That would
will
make a huge difference.
Yes, that is a huge difference. Our rates did not increase going into this year. However, Municipal League is on a different fiscal year than we are, so we may experience, I don't know yet, but there's the potential for an increase come July 1, because they're on a July 1 to June 30th calendar year. So I'm hoping that doesn't happen, but it's always a possibility, but there's no way for us to know that until that time gets closer. Me and the mayor have discussed our health insurance benefits, and we're working on trying to bring something to council to let you all look at different options to try and get the, insurance costs down for the city, because it is high. There are a few things with our benefit plan that, being a part of that plan, we're forced to do, such as having two married couples work for the city. If they have children, they have to be on separate, or even if they don't have children, if they're married and they work for our city, they have to be on separate plans. They can't be on a family plan together. So in a sense, you're paying double for those employees, whereas other PPO private insurances would allow them to be on a combined plan. So there's things like that we don't have a choice as far as if we're going to be a part of this insurance coverage, but we're looking at some things and doing some research and trying to get better rates, and hopefully we'll have something to y'all and a decision can maybe be made and looked at. Did that answer your question? Or did you have a question?
No, yes, it did. Yeah, you got the rambling there, but that's okay.
Okay. I don't know.
Are there any more questions about park fund? Okay, so we'll move on to the cemetery. Okay, so again, I'll call your attention down here to the bottom left corner for the notes. And you'll notice that in the 5601, we didn't budget anything for 2020, but we had to update it and pay for to rebuild and install the fence that was damaged in, I think it was the Easter storm that we had.
It was.
Okay. So another thing I want to call attention to again is the 4945 here at the top, and that's their reimbursement for supplies purchased for COVID. And then this should pretty much be similar. There wasn't any new changes as far as I'm aware for the new 2021 year. Are there any questions? Okay. The second page again is your salary breakdown. The third page is your assets for that fund. And the last page is your statement of revenue and expenditures for the cemetery for the year 2020. Are there any questions about cemetery fund? Okay, we'll move on to general fund. The first thing that we'll look at is the revenue. So I'm going to call your attention again to the notes here at the bottom. this year, we had the 4109 other and miscellaneous that we added to the 2020 updated budget. And you can see there how that's broken down, what all that is. The 4408 permits or licensing, that's what all that is. The 4409 rentals and leases, and the 4604. And we also received insurance claim proceeds this year, and so that's what that is down there broken down for each one. It's each of the vehicles that were damaged, and then what it costs to repair them, and or if they weren't repaired, they were surrendered to insurance. 2 of them were. And again, I'll call your attention to the up to the top. So the CARES Act reimbursement, the 4991 federal grants we received, quite a big chunk of that was police and fire salaries reimbursement. And then there's a smaller portion in there for supplies purchased for COVID relief. And then you'll also notice in the other transfers where we transferred out the 5950, all of the CARES Act money went into the general fund when we received it from the federal grants. And so we broke it up to where it's supposed to be, and we distributed that to the proper funds that had expensed the money. And you'll see that again broken down in your admin, but I just wanted to point that out, that that was all received into general fund, and then that's what went out to the other funds that were supposed to go to. Are there any questions about this particular, the revenues here? Okay, so the next page is just your statement of revenue and expenditures for the 2020 year. And that's all just revenue for the general fund. And then the next page are your asset account balances. And so that first one there, at the end of 2020, we had $879,345.87 in our checking account. And so we wanted to bring note here that we'll be using $616,260 of this to cover the 2021 budget. And so the general fund will not be taking any 1-cent sales tax money this year. General fund is going to be funding itself this year.
Hooray!
So are there any questions about the revenue side of the general fund? Okay, I'll move on to the admin. So again, just read through the notes here at the bottom. So we have the 5209 other and miscellaneous, and what that is, it's all broken down there. Again, the same thing with the 5312 permits, the 5405 contracts and engineers, and the 5411 legals. I also want to make note of a 5502 maintenance of vehicles, equipment and vehicles. This in 2020 we had discussed this with the council in 2020, where the council room's air unit quit working on us and we had to replace it. But the bill for it did not come in until the end of the year, so it'll be paid in 2021. And so we've added that to the 2021 proposed, and that's why that number is up by the $7,732. So are there any questions about the admin? Okay. So the second page, again, that's just the salaries that are broken down there. And then the last page, which the last two pages are the statement of revenue and expenditures for the 2020 year. So are there any questions? Okay, we'll move on to the police department. So again, I'll call your attention to the notes here at the bottom where we've broken down what each of these are, these numbers here. And we've also have the 5505 internal services, maintenance of vehicles and equipment that's tied to our city mechanics costs for repairing city vehicles. Are there any questions about the police department? Okay, I'll move on to the salaries. The next page are salaries broken down. And then the last page is the statement of revenue and expenditures for the police department for the 2020 year. Are there any questions for the police department? Okay. So the next fund is the fire department fund. And in the notes there, we've broken down what the 5502 maintenance of vehicle and equipment number is. You'll see it's jumped $10,000 from the 2020 budgeted to the 2021 proposed. And that's because we had the new reporting program for the fire department. And then we have a couple of annual things. And then the rest of it will just be any vehicle or equipment repairs that may be associated with the fire trucks. Also point out again the 5505 internal services of maintenance and vehicles, maintenance of vehicles and equipment. So are there any questions about this particular budget? Okay, so the next page are the salaries for the fire department. And again, the third page is also to do with the salary section. And then the last page is the statement of revenue and expenditures for the fire department for the year 2020. So do you have any questions regarding the fire department?
Just wondering if we have any leads on the fire marshal.
Eric, would you like to answer that, or do you want me to?
Either one, the answer would be the same, but no, sir, at this time, me and Patty talked the other day, we reran the ad. We looked over the job description before we ran it, just to make sure that, you know, we weren't eliminating prospects by the ad. The ad is pretty cut and dry. I mean, it's what we're looking for, it's what we need, but we've had no one applying for that position.
And I will add, last week after we went through that, Eric, I went and posted that position on some job search engines, specifically ZipRecruiter, Indeed, places like that. And as of today, there have been 0 hits. Nobody has expressed any interest in the position. So we are trying to pull out every avenue we can to try and recruit for this position. We did get some interest last year, but they were out of state, and as far as recruiting them based on what their salary was and what they bring to the table, I'm not quite sure that we were very competitive in that area. So we're still looking and working on it, but just haven't had anything yet.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the district court. So there aren't any notes associated with this. However, I will point out, you'll notice a couple of new things in 5207 under miscellaneous advertisement. We had advertisements this year to advertise that the district court was closed because of COVID. So that's kind of something that we don't normally have to do. And we kept it for the 2021 year because, again, we're still going through the COVID-19 pandemic. And so anytime that the court will be closed, it'll be advertised in the papers. The other number you'll see is the 5601 maintenance of building and structure. And that's just the pest control for the building. It's just something that we just forgot to account for. And we corrected that for the 2021 year. Are there any questions about the district court budget? Okay, so the next page, you'll see the salaries broken down for district court. And then the last page is the statement of revenue and expenditures for district court for the year 2020. So if no one has any more questions about district court, we'll move on to our last one, the one-cent sales tax. So the numbers that we want to call attention to here, we want to just let you know that our collections for the one-cent sales tax did increase this year. We had budgeted $2.3 million and we took in 2.5. Another I want to point out is the 4510 state grants. This is the we'll receive funding for the old post office repair, and you'll see the cost for it is $60.43, and our capital improvements is the $82,105. So that state grants is what we'll receive for that, and the rest of the funding to cover that you'll see in the cash carryover. The war chest will be giving $18,788 to cover the remainder of that repair cost for the old post office. Also, the 4991 federal grants for the SCBA air packs. We had budgeted for that in 2020, but it just didn't happen in the updated in the 2020 year, and so we're putting it in the 2021 again, which he'll receive the funding for that, and then it'll come out in the 6032 number in the capital improvements. The other number that you'll notice there in the 6032 as a part of the $173,600 for the 2021 year is the ladder truck payment for the 2021 year. So that's $135,000. And then in other transfers, we'll be transferring out for the Scoggin Drive, the 2020 and 21 allocations of $200,000 up there at the top there. And then the expenses, again, I already pointed out the 6032 there. The 6034 Public Works, $45,000 of that is for the 2020 truck that was approved in the 2020 budget. It had not come in yet, so it hadn't been paid for. We're hoping that it'll come in the 2021 year, and so we still allocated for that in the 2021 budget. The other portion of that is for the 2021 sludge removal project, and you'll notice that we've broken down the cost for that in the line item. So 443,800 is for the actual removal, and 44,380 is for the engineering costs associated with that. And then again, I've already pointed out the 6043 Old Post Office. You can see there how it's broken down. The repairs itself will be 71,929, and the architecture will be $10,176 for a total of 82,105. Now you'll notice these zeros that we've left in here for many of these expenses. This is for you. This is for things that are to be decided. You'll see the requests for these items later on. We'll go over those here in a few minutes. But we've left them blank until we know kind of what is going to be plugged in there. And then the last of the expenses there is your other lawful purposes. So you'll see the Senior Citizen Center, again, general fund will not be taking any from the 1 cent sales tax, and then the cemeteries portion and the parks portion. Are there any questions about the 1 cent sales tax? For the things that we've already plugged in, I mean. Okay, the second page, those are the assets for the 1 cent sales tax as of December 31st, 2020. The third page is the statement of revenues and expenditures for the 1 cent sales tax for the year 2020. And the last page is the budget request for the 1 cent sales tax. And I'll let the department heads, if you have any questions about these, answer any of the questions about their requests. Any questions?
On the public works, on the skid steer and all that, we were, I think, looking at some other options. Did anything ever come from that investigation?
Charlie?
Did you do that?
I think he might have froze for a minute. Give him a second.
I think you did. I think you did too.
Yeah.
Remind me, Michael.
I got it unmuted. What was the question?
When we had talked about your proposed 1 cent sales tax budget request in the stick steer with the bush hog, we had discussed maybe seeing what the cost would be to contract clearing those right of ways as opposed to purchasing that equipment. Did we do any investigating into that?
Did you check that, Charlie? Did he freeze again?
I
He's
think so.
muted and he's frozen.
Yeah, I think he's frozen.
Yeah.
Well, if we can just kind of look into that before we finalize his budget, I would appreciate it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I did. Yeah. Yes, I did check it, and it was like $200 an hour for a skidder. The one that's made on the skidder, it's like $200 an hour. I'll mute it again.
Are there any other questions about any of the items here on the budget request? Okay. I don't have anything else for the budgets. That's it for the 1 cent sales tax.
But I do have questions I need some answers to.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I need some answers to these questions here. What is a retention raise? Okay, also I need again, it was mentioned in prior meetings that we give 1 year retention raise. Does this apply in step 1 or 2? Number 2, I would like to see a listing of all employees by department that received a raise for 2021. A cost of living, retention, and any other monetary increases for 2021. Okay,
2020 or 21?
2021. I'm sorry, 21. All listed for 2021.
Okay.
Okay, how many employees did we hire in 2020?
Patty, are you writing all that down?
Yeah, so far I have, you want to know what a retention raise is. You want the definition of that, which is easy to give you. You want a list of employees that, and all the different types of raises and who received them for 2020 or 2021, because you started to cut out.
2021, sorry. 2021. Yes.
The
So-
year we're going into.
So everybody who's supposed to get a raise this year, you're wanting to know what positions those are. Because there've
I
been
want to know, pardon me?
there've been no raises given this year. No, I don't think there've been any retention or step raise. Nothing has happened
I
this year.
haven't done, we have not done anything because the budget's not passed yet. So
No,
until
no, I'm talking about for going into 2021, are there any raises going into 2021?
Oh, yes, I can give you that. Okay, that's what I thought you were asking for. I just wanted to be clear.
Yes.
Okay.
I need to know, are there any raises going into 2021? Are
Okay.
there cost of living going into 2021?
Okay.
Retention going into 2021? Any other monetary going into 2021?
Okay. And then you also want a list of all new hires that were hired for 2020.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm with you. Is there more?
No, I need to make a statement on that. If I remember correctly, the council voted not to hire any new employees due to budget constraints. So keep in mind that statement. And I think we voted on that in 2020.
Okay, but if we had a vacancy that was a budgeted position, we were able to fill that position.
Oh, okay. In the new employee.
A new
In
employee.
new-
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
in the
Okay.
new positions.
Okay. Do you want me to give you the definition of what a retention raise is right now?
Okay, you can.
Okay. I'm reading from our pay scale resolution directly from that. It's under our non-uniform pay step increases. It defines a retention increase, step increase as Non-uniformed employees shall earn step increases after serving the following prescribed periods of service in at least a satisfactory manner without any disciplinary occurrences. After 52 weeks of service, 1 year, 260 more weeks of service, 5 years, 260 more weeks of service, 10 years, 260 more weeks of service, 15 years, and 260 weeks of service, 20 years, 260 more weeks of service, 25 years. That is how our current pay scale resolution reads and defines a retention increase.
Okay, what was the latter? If a new employee comes in for a year, 52 months, will they get a raise?
At 1 year, their anniversary date, based on this definition, they would be eligible for their retention raise at their 1 year anniversary. And it does not define whether or not they come in their grade at a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or 7. It does not define that. It doesn't specify. It just says that they get a raise at 1, 5, 10, 15, 20, and 25 years of service based on their hire date, which we call it their accrual date.
Okay then. If you could give me the answer to the rest of it, I appreciate it.
Yep, I will work on that. I will get that to you. Yes, sir.
Are there any other questions? Okay, so that's it for these particular funds. So if you'll look those over, and if you have any questions later, you can let us know, or if there's any concerns about anything, just let us know. I'll work on getting the Senior Citizen Center breakdown out tomorrow. Paige, do we need to meet again this week, or?
Do y'all want to meet Thursday evening to discuss these needs for the different departments and how to plug them into the budget, or?
Is everyone good with Thursday? Are there any concerns about that date?
Thursday will be fine with me.
Okay, so this Thursday at 5:30, y'all have your, we'll know more about your question, Mr. James, and y'all kind of decide what you think we should do with these desires for those different departments. And we'll plug those numbers in, and basically we're finished with the budget.
Yeah.
Our regular council meeting is on the 26th. Is that correct?
26th at 6 o'clock.
Okay.
That's a week from today, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Will that be in person?
Well, the way I was just about to say, the way I'm a little bit hesitant to do it in person. I'd like to see what the COVID numbers do before we make that determination. So if you'll give me 4 or 5 more days, or let's see if there's a big spike or a big decrease in the number of cases, I'd feel better about, I'd prefer to meet in person, but I just don't want to get anybody sick.
Thursday is at 5:30?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, if there's no more questions or nobody has anything else to add, we'll convene for the evening.
Thank you for your patience with me. This is my first time doing this one myself.
You did a great job, Ashley.
Good job,
you did
Ashley.
a very nice
Good.
job.
Thank you.
Very articulate, to the point. I like that. Did a good job.
Thank you.
And I like
Good
meeting every
clarity.
other day like this. This is wonderful.
You like me? What?
I love meeting every other day like this. It's wonderful. Makes it easy to make my calendar out each month.
Sincerity is showing.
Well,
Well, I don't know about you, but my social schedule is 0.
This is all the social activity I
This
get.
is